Like to make your way over to the table.
A patient is prepared for a pelvic X-ray using KingMark. Developed at the University of Warwick and University Hospitals Coventry and Warwickshire NHS Trust, this apparently simple piece of equipment is bringing a level of accuracy to templating for hip replacements that until now was not available to orthopaedic surgeons. In the United States, more than 200,000 people have total hip replacements each year. The numbers are growing fast. By 2030, it's expected there'll be well in excess of 500,000. It's now a routine procedure, yet each patient is unique. The challenge is to tailor every operation and every surgical implant to the individual. So, pre-operative templating is central to getting things right.
I've always been keen on templating my operations before I do them. I think that's very important as part of your planning. In the past, I was used to doing it on analogue X-ray films with acetate overlays. And as soon as we went on to digital X-rays and a PACS system, we found we were having to use software to do the templating, and at the very beginning we didn't have any scale markers, and we had some very serious problems with misjudging the scale and the size.
So single scale markers like this came into use, but it can be invasive and uncomfortable for the patient, and results can be highly variable. A single marker relies on precise positioning. It needs special expertise and extra time to apply correctly.
The staff could put a ball next to the patient without any difficulty, but it was extremely variable where they put the ball, and quite often the ball was too far anterior or posterior, as a result of which the templating was quite inaccurate.
At the University Hospital of Coventry and Warwickshire, surgeon Richard King was frustrated by these inaccuracies. He was determined to come up with a solution.
So I first of all went down and spoke to our radiographers and said to them, what is the problem with this current marker? And they had a number of issues with it. They found it very personally invasive to use on patients. They found it very difficult to apply correctly, particularly in the larger patients. Through talking to them, they were very clear that they needed something that was a bit easier to use. And it seemed to me the only place where you can mark a patient accurately is the front of the patient and the back of the patient. And so I got to thinking, if I can mark the patient's front and back, can I use that to then calculate and infer the magnification of the hips? So that was the idea, and then it was a case of working out the maths, and then when that worked, refining the design. The way it works is that the patient lies on a board, and within that board are a series of radio-opaque marker rods, and they effectively will indicate the back of the patient. And then as the patient is laid on the board, then the front marker, which is a row of linked balls, is positioned over the patient's suprapubic region, and that marks the front of the patient. The reason KingMark works is that the relationship of the magnification of the hip to the front and the back of the patient is actually remarkably constant. There's very little variation across the population. So by taking the mean value to describe that relationship between the front and back of the pelvis, we can then use those markers that we've got and calculate the magnification of the hip. So in a nutshell, that's how it works.
What this enables us to do is to routinely scale every pelvic X-ray that we perform with minimum effort and with no difficulty for the radiographers or the patients. And that means that every time I see a patient who needs a hip replacement, I automatically have the scaling information on the radiograph, and the software enables me to automatically scale those pictures.
KingMark has made it easier because it's on the table as the patient comes into the room. So we just lie the patient onto the board and then put the strap in front of them. So we're not as intimate with the patient because we don't have to put the ball in between their legs.
We have moved to a position now where we no longer worry about accuracy of templating. It's just not a problem anymore. KingMark has enabled us to do templating straightforwardly and reliably, and to no longer have to worry about the scaling of the radiographs.
I think it's made a very significant difference to the accuracy with which we can now template.
Getting it right makes it more likely that we'll get the operation right first time, and more likely that we will be able to do the operation smoothly and efficiently.
In clinical trials, KingMark performed 4 times more accurately than the conventional single ball marker. KingMark is distributed exclusively by Voyant Health, the makers of TraumaCAD. TraumaCAD software automatically detects the presence of KingMark within an X-ray, calculates the magnification percentage and sizes the image correctly.
For me, a hip replacement is like a journey, and with any journey you need a map, you need a plan, and knowing where you're going to go. To work without KingMark is like trying to make a journey with a handwritten map, a hand-drawn map. Personally, I'd far rather use a map that's been produced accurately, even a satellite navigation, and for me, KingMark offers that.